Hey, what's going on? NearFear here, and today I'll be showing you a small little showcase of a track that has inspired the fourth round of the Team Dictator Muscle Car Championship of 2015, sponsored by Team Dictator and Ego Chaser. If you need some health, buy some now. And we're going to see the Templar Street Circuit rather than the Templar GP2 circuit first, just to get a feel for where it came from and the concept behind the designs of both of them. So let's jump right on in to we're going to start at the end of the lap to get the sense of speed for the beginning of the lap, because you're not really going to start from the front stretch on the grid. And let's see, right here, you're going to start by this corner here, which is very kind of easy to get wrong. If you carry too much speed on the outside, you'll hit this barrier, you'll unsettle the car too much. If you carry too little speed on the inside, well, you have no speed at the end of the lap. So coming out of this corner, we're going to go all the way down this front straight, which is relatively long, but not as long as the GP2 circuit. The GP2 circuit's front stretch is pretty large. But I'm going to go ahead straight through this corner, which is a lot faster than you would think it would be. Not as fast as the second iteration of the circuit, mainly because it has a second turn kind of in the middle of it. But you carry a lot of speed in, and you then have to slow up and go around the secondary corner and start entering sector 2. Now we'll get back to that corner later in terms of overtaking opportunities, but you then turn into turn 4, which the car gets a little bit flighty going into it because you're starting to go downhill. And then you're going through turn 5, which sends the rear of your car into a bit of a drift because you're still going downhill, and the rear end seems to have a little bit more momentum when you're turning because of the gravity. And you're going straight back uphill, taking a right-hand turn and then a left-hand turn. I believe you can go through some of this too wide, but I will explain at the end of this lap why it was kind of removed for the second part of the track. One of the reasons being it was kind of monotonous to drive through. So I'm gonna come through this next corner into this checkpoint 10 right here, which can catch you out in the rain. In the dry, it's not as bad. In the rain, it can catch you out just a little bit if you're not paying attention to what you're doing. And so can turn 11 catch you out in the rain if you're not paying attention to what you're doing. It can catch you out in the dry, mainly because if you take too much speed, you end up into the grass, into the sand and bushes right here. We're just going to call this gravel, just for like immersion effects. But you can end up in this little gravel trap that will slow you down and ruin all of your speed into this next sector, which is very high speed. Very high speed coming up right here. You got to go through this S-bend, which isn't too difficult. I'd find it more difficult to do in the rain than it is in the dry. And here's where it does start to get difficult in both weather conditions. Right here, since you're coming up, your entry is kind of compromised by this little section of land right here, and since I can't allow people to hit these posts and ruin everyone's entry into this corner, I had to put barriers there. So you're forced to kind of run this short and try and carry as much speed as possible anyway, which leads to two things. One, your rear end wants to step out right here. Through here, your rear end wants to just kind of step out and spin you all the way out here. Two, even if you do get it right, you're still carrying enough speed to where the front understeers all the way over here. So it is tricky to get right in the best of conditions and the worst of conditions, but if you get it right, very, very, very satisfying thing to do. And then you're basically carrying all that momentum into this corner, but you can't take it all with you. You carry it into the entry of this corner, and then you have to lose it, or else you run the risk of running into these barriers which stop your car dead, or this barrier which will wreck your car. And if you run it too closely, well, people can... I'm not sure if people can drive around the outside. I haven't seen that yet in the little running that I've done on this track with a few other friends, but I believe you run it too slowly, you kind of just ruin your lap. That's what I'm going to stick with for now, until someone proves to me that they can run the outside around this corner with someone. But after you leave this corner, the exit of this corner is the key thing, because it brings you onto the back straight, which is very, very, very long. A very long back stretch. You come out of this corner, and you just come straight down. Let's see if we can get the scope of this back stretch. Come straight down, you go around a bend, and then you're at this final set of corners, which is like an elongated chicane, kind of like a weird bus stop, as I'd like to call it. But you go through here as quickly as you can, but this looks like turn 1, but do not be fooled. It's more of a medium speed turn, because your car just continues to understeer into this apartment complex, building complex, into this building. Just wants to understeer into the building. So you kind of just want to carry moderate speed in and kind of make sure you have the right line choice so you can carry the speed out of 28 and fly down the front stretch. Now, here's where I get into the details of the track and why it was reworked. We're going to start off with the pit lane since we're already here. So this pit lane, I'm not sure if you can see it as well, but is very tight. It's a very tight pit lane, and it's off to the left of the track. So if you're on the right and you want to pit, you gotta come through all of this landmass to do so. Now, we do have areas on either side just to warn you that pits are coming up, or pits are gonna be in the next turn, but it is still possible to miss these visual cues. So it is a quite tricky pit lane when you're first starting, but you can master it along the way, as for many pit lanes, which makes it still viable. It then runs into another problem where, since it's so tight, if someone's following you and wanted to go in pits, you gotta brake super hard not to hit any of these. I mean, I'm talking from like probably 50 to 5 miles an hour, which is a pretty large speed drop just to get through this. And then on the exit is very difficult to get through the exit as well, which it should be. Is just that the way it's set up, it is just too slow to have 2 cars go through at once. It is really only designed for one guy to go and pit and leave. So we've redone the pit lane. I might redo the pit lane again for this version just for the kicks. I was thinking when I first started redoing it, maybe I could just add the pits through this little section over here and have them re-enter through the stairs. I'm not sure. But regardless, we might have a redux on this pit lane and not the second pit lane, because that redo is already done. So we're going to go on to... I'm going to skip turn 1 because I explained that is pretty fast. But the other thing that I want to mention before I forget, you can go too wide here very, very easily. Like, at first I thought it wouldn't be possible because of the high speed carrying. But if someone got alongside you and they knew what they were doing, they could hold this inside line. And the guy on the outside, if he knew what he was doing, could go around the outside line. And it really depends on who gets the better exit at that point. Who can get the best line for the better exit. So it's a little fun factor of this course. You can go too wide in the first corner and it's relatively slow enough to do so. And then you can kind of go too right around the next turn. Not exactly the next turn, because with the downhill and the gravity, it kind of kicks the rear end of your car out, and whoever's on the outside is kind of going to run wide a little bit. And the person on the inside might end up running them wide if they're actually pushing. If they're not pushing, you're both just going super slow on the exit, and you still might run the guy on the outside into the dirt a little bit. So, gonna go the uphill, not much to talk about. But here, the main reason, yes, I'm going back to checkpoint 10. The main reason this is difficult in the rain is because there are subtle bumps. They're not very big at all. They're subtle bumps, and with the constricted nature of the outside line, if you carry just a little too much speed, you're either going to drift into a tree or into this thing. If you have the right line, carry too much speed, you're just going to end up way on the sidewalk and completely compromise your ground here, which is very important. So you kind of just want to take your time with this set of corners. I mean, you don't want to go too slow, because then you're just not getting out of 11, or you'll just lose the time between 10 and 11, which isn't that much time. So if you want to sacrifice 10 to make 11, I'd say do that. But the main goal is to get all of it kind of right and just exit with a low speed. So here it's also odd in the rain because you have the same problem that you had in 10. In the lines you can take are a little restricted in terms of arcs, and if you try and go a little bit further and arc it out a bit late, you tend to spin the car into the gravel again. So you kind of just want to follow your typical line, but just really focus on the exit here, because you're going to go over into this S section, which you can relatively do in the rain, somewhat flat out, mainly because on the entry to this right hand bend you kind of understeering, but it's possible. The only problem comes when you're carrying the speed into 15, because you do have to slow down in the rain in order to make this corner right here for checkpoint 16, 17, 18, and 19. So this whole section, let's see if we can get it all in the review. This whole section right here is quite difficult in the rain. It's difficult in the dry, but not even remotely as difficult in the rain because of the understeer that you end up getting, and the oversteer if you end up getting something wrong. Front straight, all self-explanatory. Take the right exit and kind of just keep on going down until you get to the final turn. From what I remember, in the rain of this final turn, it's kind of just getting the right speed without oversteering into the building. That's kind of all it is. And here you want to get the direction changes smooth enough so they can get the exit speed out of 28 to go into turn 1. So that is it for the Templar Street Circuit. We'll be looking at the Templar GP2 circuit later. Maybe later in the week, maybe later today. Depends on when I can get the video done and dusted. But that is the size of the Templar Street Circuit. Now, there are tracks in GTA that are much, much longer than this. But just for a standard race, when this was initially designed for compact cars, this is pretty big. This is pretty big. So I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Please be sure to rate, comment, and subscribe for more content similar to this. And I will catch you guys on the flip side of the quarter. Later.